Hi guys, and welcome to this recording where I will show you the resolution of the HackMyBox challenge which I announced during the winter camp. The website which you're seeing now here is the website that was hosted on that machine which I set up back then and gave you as a target. By the time you're watching this video, this website will most likely be taken down already, but you can set it up yourself by setting up a web server where you can run PHP scripts. Go over to github/simonsimcity/phpsploits. This is a package or a website which I friendly took from another person who that person's name is Jared Mooring from London, UK, and he created that website about 10 years ago already, but those things still apply. He here wrote that this code has been developed in such a way that it is vulnerable to the most basic and common website exploits. It is meant to contain all the bad practices. And I can trust you, those practices are bad and should be replaced if you have them in your script. I will talk about many of those, and I also tweaked his version a bit so that it is a bit harder in some ways, but it allows also for a bit more things in one way. Let's see. Let's get into it. The first thing that I would do if you want to check your website, like I don't do this for somebody to hack professionally somebody else's website, but I do this in order for you developers to gain knowledge about how to prevent other people from doing this to your site. That as a basis. I don't want anyone to end up in jail because they hacked a system which actually was responsible for a lot of things, which in the end also means a lot of money. I just want you to prepare your website and your systems against hackers. And therefore, you also need to think like a hacker. And the first thing I personally would do is to play around with parameters that you see. So if you now here, for example, go onto this website, you might want to click around on the different websites, and you see that all those links, they lead to PHP pages, some of them having input fields, and some of them, like the first one here, having a URL parameter. Now, here in this example, I made it very obvious for you, so you also see the SQL query that is sent to the system. In this case here, you can almost guess that this value here is used in this SQL query. Because if you add something here, hit enter, you can see that this username changes. You can also already tell from the system that there probably is a user called Jared with a password Jared. By the way, clear disclaimer here, never store your passwords in clear text. Never. It is a no-go. Even do not store it in an encryption where it can be decrypted into its original value. Don't do it. Please use something that is called hashes, where you take a value and by a mathematical operation take it into run it through a lot of math to get it to a certain value. With the same input you will always get the same output, but with a slightly different input you will get a different output. That is one of the hash functions. One of them is called MD5, and we have also had a bit of talk throughout the winter camp about that and about storing passwords. If you want to see that, please check out our YouTube channel, BUK Coding. But back to the script. Since we now can write basically everything, which will then end up as part of that SQL query, I can also try to do something the user did not expect me to do. I can now write a single quotation mark because I see that this username, which I have as text here, ends with a single quotation mark. So what happens if I write a single quotation mark? Then write an or space true space or space single quotation mark in order to have the quotation mark that is added to my text also taken care of. If I hit enter here, I would see that the SQL query constructed. Now if you read it, you would say where username equals Jared, or true, which is true, which yields for all the rows it checks, or an empty text, which is usually in many languages I've worked with, an empty text is equal or is regarded as equal to false. But this doesn't matter because it is already true. Like this whole statement is true if one of the statements is true because I connected it with or. And one of the statements certainly is true. So this here will now give us all the users that exist in the system. And a part of that, you can also, since the login form here has the same bad way of constructing the SQL query, you can just, when typing in a username and password, you can see that you can also do exactly the same here. You can also do an SQL injection by just typing upper quotation space or space true space or upper quotation, write some random password, click on login, and you will see that it will select from users all the rows where the username is empty or true, which will yield for all the rows, or an empty text and the password is that random text. And since I again connected it with or, this and will just yield for those two here, whereby the ors will yield for this one and this combination. So also here, this complete where statement will be true for every row. And that is also why the system now also authenticated us as the first user it found in the database. I can now go to view messages and see that I'm logged in as Jared. Go to send messages to send a message to somebody else on the system. As you see already, a couple of guys hacked this system. Congrats to you. You will be contacted by me later. But what you can also, and now you see that we got into the system, or we at least got ourselves logged in. This will be a valuable resource for later on, because if you now look around here, you see that I can send messages, I can view messages, I can also send messages to somebody else, and now it gets funny. I can also include try to include some JavaScript here, because as I see with view messages, those messages are just shown here as plain text, right? So if this text would be JavaScript, would the JavaScript be executed in my browser? You can try it out yourself, because I guess it will. I didn't fix anything of those things here. Going on, and now taking the first step of the challenges, which I pointed out. The challenges, just to repeat here, are first create a user with your mail address in the SQL database. The second one, send me the content of the file /etc/passwd. Third, send me a copy of my private SSH key stored on this machine. I will give you now a chance to pause, go on and try it yourself. I think, yeah. Continuing from now on, I will show you how to do all these things. I will start with the second one because I think the first one was a bit more challenging than I expected it to be. So let's starting with the second one. Going on to other places, like for example this edit profile, you can see that you can write a first name, write a last name, write an email address, and you can upload pictures. This will be valuable maybe a bit later on. But on the load template here, you can see that also here we have a parameter. Let's start playing around with that one. Just hitting some values in, and now you get a valuable information by this line telling you, warning, require once, failed to open stream, no such file or directory in /var/www/html/template.php. This now tells you that most likely the system tried to include this as a file. Like taking this as a file name and trying to include that file. So if you now, for example, type a different file here, it should also include this file. And if you know a bit about PHP, you also know that PHP files usually start with a greater sign, $PHP, and then all the PHP code. For example, echo hello world. Closing. Switching this one here over to PHP, so you also can see the beautiful syntax highlight. Yes. And since PHP originally was only designed as a template language, there is also there can also be something outside those starting and ending PHP tags. For example, if I write some stuff here, this will directly be sent to the browser, since it is not parsed by the PHP parser. So I can now load some files here that can be directly outputted in the browser. And with this, I will now already solve the first challenge by typing in, I hope it works with this starting /etc/passwd. If you know if you know Linux already, then you know that if a path starts with a slash, it is an absolute path, meaning from the root directory. And the root the root node on our system has a directory etc and the file passwd, which is exactly where the second target of our challenge is. So now hitting enter here will already give us the content of this file. If you think this is a bit crumbled, you can also do a right click, view page source, where you will see all the text not parsed in an HTML parser, and then you will actually see the content of that file line by line. This was now the first part of the challenge. I think this was a bit of an easier part, and a part of the SQL injection. I think this was what most of the people already got to. The next two statements are a bit harder. And let's start with this page over here. On this page over here, you could upload files. Now this might have brought some of you to the idea where they could just go to a place and upload some random files. For example, here I have a PHP script. Let's try if I can upload that one. Click on open, click on upload. Yeah, and here you see upload failed. Allowed file types are GIF and PNG, and allowed MIME types are image/GIF and image/PNG. Your file is PHP and text/x-PHP. So it kind of found out that our file ended with the extension .php, and that it also most likely is a PHP file. Because if I now go ahead, go back, choose to upload a file. Let's go to our Finder, go to this file that we had. Where was it? Only Church, and rename it to .png. Use PNG instead. Select it here. Open. Upload. You see that even though it has the extension PHP, the system now guessed it to still be a text file. Now this comes from something which is called MIME type guessing. This is comes from the fact that a file does not tell what it do, or in Windows actually it does. In Windows, if you take a file and change the extension of the file, which is also part of the file name, to something else, the system has no idea what this file is about. So if you now have a text file and change its extension to .png, the system will try to open it with an image editor. But the content of that file still is a text, right? So the editor has no idea what you want to do with it. There is a concept called MIME type guessing, where the system, by the content of the file, tries to evaluate what kind of file it is. And this now, since we only allow GIF and PNG as a file extension, and we only allow MIME types as image/GIF and image/PNG, we can now look up MIME type guessing for GIF files, GIF image, and if I don't find it here, I already have it somewhere else. GIF PNG. Do we also have an explanation how to find out what a GIF file is? Okay, this is taking me a bit too long. Let's go over to Wikipedia. On Wikipedia, I already went through and read the article, and they state that GIF files start with a fixed length header of the characters GIF87A or GIF89A. So now if you know that if I have a file that starts with those characters, it is most likely a GIF image. So by taking that, you can actually trick our MIME type guesser by creating a file which looks like this. Okay, here I have to admit I actually took a valid GIF image, which is just 1 pixel by 1 pixel and is a transparent pixel. But this file starts with this GIF89A, and it has some PHP code in here. And this PHP code is something that we now want to execute. So let's go back to where we were. Go to Edit Profile. Click on Choose File. And we will now choose this file, this 3302, this image here, with our custom PHP code inside. Click on Open. Now, let's first do something else. Let's first execute PHP info here and take the rest for later. I will put it all into a comment. Open it, upload it, and we can see that this file now was successfully uploaded. Congratulations, you got it. Go to Edit Profile, check out this profile, which we just did. We can open this image in a new tab. Go to this image, right click, and inspect. Maybe it will do it. No, it won't. I want to see the source code. View source code. It has it disabled. Too bad. We can now download this one. Save page as. Save it here. And now I want to open this file with my Visual Studio Code editor. And also Visual Studio Code tries to show it to me as an image, tells me that there is an error with it, and now gives me the option to open the file using Visual Studio Code standard text or binary editor. And this we want to go ahead of. We want to open it anyways with the text editor. And you can see that this is now the file that we uploaded, right? So we got our file with our custom PHP code on the server. And as we did previously with our load template here, you know that we can execute custom PHP files here. So since we uploaded something, let's go ahead and take this PHP file, right click on that, copy the image address, click on load template. If we type something in here, we can see the path from where it tries to load it. If we now take the path that we copied, we see that this is the path where the image is, and relatively to this template.php, it is based in this folder. So we now copy this one, place it behind the equal sign, paste it, make sure to not have a slash in front of here, press enter, and you can now see that this PHP code, which we uploaded as part of our image, is executed. And now with this in mind, you can basically do everything you can do in PHP. And something that I personally did was, or what I expected people to do, since we all are lazy, and first try to figure out where we actually are, we can put some code onto the server, which will allow us to basically do everything we want within a nice formula. So here, for example, let's get this ready. I have some code which I save to another PHP file. So by executing my script, I now upload a file to the server. And this file can be anything. You can just Google for, I don't know, PHP remote shell script, and you can get many of those scripts where you can execute something from within PHP, where you just have a lot of possibilities. I, for example, in my example, made an input field, which I then, when clicking on the submit command, will where do I have it? Here. Will put into the system call. And if we look it up, PHP system in the manual, we will see that here we can execute an external program and display the output. And this external program can be anything I want to write into a shell. Let's go ahead and try it out. Back to my Visual Studio Code. I save. First, let me remove this extra content which we added before. I save this one. Go to Edit Profile. Upload my custom profile. 33.0 was yes. Upload. File uploaded successfully. And let's take this file and execute it. Copy image address. Execute it as PHP. Bam! We got in. And in this PHP file, we now created a PHP file in the uploaded files /test.php. So let's open that one. You can also just go from here, .php, where you will have only your PHP file. And this is how it looks. And now you can execute whatever you want to execute in the shell. For example, ls to list the current directory, and we get a list of all that we have in the current directory. You can use cat to show the content of specific files, like we already did with the /etc/passwd file. You can see that we also get that content, whatever you want to execute in the shell. And you also, this is something that I will get to later when trying to prevent all these things. I want to show you how to prevent that stuff from happening. But that comes later, after we did everything. Now we see that now here in this PHP script, we could actually run our own PHP code, right? So let's see, ls space ... Let's see what's actually on the on this location where I can access it from the web server. Here we can see that we have a couple of scripts here, among others this template.php, which we were opening earlier. If you go to the website itself and go to load template, you can see that this actually executes the template.php. Now go over here, and now I want to see the content of this file, and instead of ls I use cat /template.php, and now I will get the content. No, I won't. Why not? ls -al the -al actually shows you also who is the owner and how the permissions are set. So here in this example, I can see that all those files are owned by root, and also the group root, and the user root has read and write access. The group has only read, and others have also only read. So I should be able to see this file, or at least the content of this file. Template.php. cat. No. Does it? Yes, here it is. In this pre, you can see that here's a PHP. This here in this pre is actually the content of our file. You can't see it here because some of the stuff we wrote there actually makes the HTML parser hide it from our appearance here. You can easily evaluate that by going back to the LS. If we don't do a right click and view pages as source, you can see that the source that we see as a result of this command is inside those two pre-tags. Now when switching over to our other where we wanted to show the content of the template PHP, you can see that this here is inside the two pre-tags, and this is actually the content of our template PHP. And here you see that this one includes, it first creates a whitelist, then it has a comment. Everything that starts with the double slashes is a comment in PHP. And then it has a require once for comment.php before it goes on with some other code. So let's check out this comment.php. cat./common.php. Here we will also take the source code. And here we can see that this PHP script starts a session, defines a list. If empty, does something else. For each, echo, echo, echo. I guess it would also do a different thing. Or did I jump over something? No, I didn't. But this was also maybe not the right place to start. I now wanted to get down to the login credentials for the next challenge. Where were we? Here's where we were. I wanted to get down to this one. Create a user with your username in the MySQL database. Let's take the login page. Login.php. Because the login PHP is what we see when we click on, where's the website? Here. If you click on the login link, then you see login.php. And this website needs access to the database because it shows the username and the password. Here, it lets us type in the username and the password. And when you click on login, it sends this data to the same file and tries to evaluate if the user is allowed to log in or not. So it must have access to the database. Let's check out how it gets this access. Going back here, cat, the login, showing the source file, we see that it also requires the comment.php, which didn't have much valuable information for now, but it also requires dbfuncs.php. Now let's check that one out. If we execute it and also show the source of this one, we can see that this file requires a common PHP, a const PHP, and also as a function connect where it connects via MySQLi to a database. And it also has a getSelect and an insert query. So now let's check out what we can do with that. You could now go back to your image and write, let's go back to, or we just go here and enable PHP syntax highlight. You can now go here and require once this file. Let's see how we can construct that one. Let's find the right path. We go to load template and just write something random here. We see that /var/www/html is the location of template.php. And since we don't, we actually know where our file will end up, but let's say we wouldn't know. We can take the absolute path, now include the dbfuncs.php, which now has a bunch of functions which we can use. For example, we need to connect to the database. So let's call connect. We also need to let's select, no, actually don't take a select query. We can straight go to the insert query, where we now here can write down a query on how our new user should look like. And if you know SQL and insert queries, they usually look like this. Insert into table name, the columns, and then the values, and then the values. Or you could also straight write down the values if you know the columns and their order. Let's take this first approach here where we define the individual columns. Let's paste this one just here straight away. Put it into one line. Now go back to our scripts. And if I take an ls on ... again, there was also an SQL file. Those usually contain commands. And let's say what this this file contains of commands. Not ls, but cat. I want to see the content of it. Right click, view page as source. And now we are lucky because this file contains the whole plan or the whole list of tables that our database has, including the individual columns. Please, if you do this, store those files somewhere where nobody can access them, okay? Because otherwise they know how your database is constructed, or somehow make sure they can't access it, right? Down here, you see the users table, and you also see an insert into command, which can actually be, we can just take that right away, paste it here into our insert. Since we just want one user, we take the second user away. And if we read carefully through our requirements here, we also see that we do not need to give it an ID, but it is an auto increment. So we can now here, let's revert that one, because in that case we actually need to write down the columns we want to store a value in. I think. Let's do it this way. Username, password, first name, last name. I call it surname, email. This should be a comma here. And I'll write down the values. Username is Simon. Password is Simon. First name. Wait a second. No. First name is Simon with a capital S. Surname is Schick. Email address is simon.schick@foo.com. This is just a random email address, so you don't spam me. Save this file. Now if we go back to our website, edit profile, you know the procedure already. Take this file. This time I took a different file, 6DA. The name is not relevant here. You should just take the same file that you edited. Copy the image address, go back here, paste the name, adjust the path, hit enter, and from now on, your user should be added to the database. Looking for the username Simon. Unable to find user. Okay, something went wrong. Insert into. Maybe it is the semicolon in the end, which it didn't like. Save it. Uploading the image. Executing it. No. Let's check it out. I forgot to replace the table name. The table name was users. Of course, that doesn't work. Let's go back to the website. Edit profile, upload my prepared image. Again, copying the value, going to the path, / is executed, and now I should, yes, there we go, there is my user. You see, now we already got the second point checked off of our challenge. And the last one is maybe actually easier than you thought, because since we now have a script to execute remote shell, we can just, using ls, we can go everywhere, right? We can just see what is in /. Let's do it with -al. And you can see that there is a home directory. This is the place where Linux stores the individual users and their data. /home. Let's see what is in there. There is a folder Simon. It is readable for everyone. Nice. Let's go into that one. And there you find the .ssh folder, which again is readable for everyone. .ssh. And in here you can find the private key, which is only readable to Simon. But this one is not really a problem if you know that there is a command called sudo switch user and do a command. And since we do not give it the name of a user, it will take root. And root on Linux is a user with the highest who can do the most. He basically can do everything. Few exceptions, but he can basically, yeah, he is the root. He can do everything. And if you do that, now let's, yeah, with a cat /id_isa. That is the content of the third part of the challenge. So you got so far. Congratulations, you got it all over. And now here come my tips on how to prevent these things. Okay? These are things I personally have seen in real life in a bit of a different manner. At that time it was on a Windows machine, and I have to say it was not hard to hack inside that box. And there are various things you can do in order to prevent all those things that I've just shown you. The first thing that we went to, let's start off with it. It was the SQL injection, right? So SQL injection means that you can write an SQL query and inject other things into it. I've shown it to you in this example here, where this here was the SQL query that we constructed, and here was the variable that we put into this string, right? But if we, instead of just blindly putting it into here, do an MySQL single quote, escape single quote, they call it. They had a function for that in the past, but I think they removed it. Yeah, anyways, if a system now here would just take this and include it in here, but it would escape the upper quotes, then this here, this single quotation mark would not be the end of the string, but still part of this string. So this here would then actually be the username. The syntax highlighting here is a bit off. That shouldn't disturb you. And there is also another thing that you can do in order to prevent it, and this is called prepared statements in SQL, where you actually tell your database that this is my SQL query and it has a variable. And as this variable, I now want to include this text. And now you give your database directly those two things, the query and the value you want to put in at the point of the variable. Then you can write your SQL query a bit different. Let's see how they do it here in PHP. There was a website where it was a bit more experimentary. Here, for example, where you put in the query and then you set a variable. For example, here they use it with a question mark, right? Well, let's go. Yeah. Let's take this one. And then this function returns a statement. A statement means this query with the information that there are variables inside. And now you can bind parameters to that statement. For example, say that the first question mark should be a string. That's why it is an S here. And it should have the content of this PHP variable. And then you execute this statement. You basically send both those things separately to the database, and the database then takes care of putting the values in there, which is usually a bit better prepared for you for attacks. For example, now there are also ways to exploit something where you here, for example, would say that Let's say we would have a magic escape function, which would escape everything. This could also, there are also some cases in SQL where this could backfire. Some, yeah. But this would, for example, be valid cases when you want to execute something in the context of another system. For example, something that I've, for example, done is this one here, where you, if you looked into the source itself, just taking this file, open it in the source code. Now here I didn't do it. This wouldn't have been vulnerable of this. But if you, for example, have shell scripts where you want to do it, it could very well be that just escaping the characters would already solve all your problems. So this was for the SQL injection. The next thing that we did was this remote file execution, right? If you do something like that, if you provide a place where the user can provide input on which file he wants to access, you should also limit the files he can access. For example, here in the template.php, if you have looked at it, in the source code, it already had the correct stuff saved in here. For example, it had the open base there, which is a configuration in PHP where you can tell which folder is allowed to be accessed by a PHP script. If this would be enabled, if this setting would have been set, I would not be able to go outside this directory, and I would not be able to go into the /etc and get the content of the other file. So this would be one thing where you could lock me out there. But this still is a trap, because by uploading the GIF file here, send message, no, edit profile, here we were. By uploading this GIF file, I could still upload a random file which would be inside our /var/www folder, so it could have been opened by the script. And this is why you should, if you do stuff like this, you should introduce whitelisting. Introduce a list of files that you allow to be opened, and the rest should not be allowed to be opened. This was a pretty dumb way of securing it for me. Yeah, it didn't secure it in any way. But if you do stuff like that, use whitelists. You should be in full control of what the user can do and what he cannot do. And the third thing that we had here, the third vulnerable, was that the user actually, if you know the file, let's go back to the place where we had our here, this db.sql file. You can also just by chance type it into the URL, and you can download it and look into it and see our database structure. Please don't make those files accessible that easily. Or you can also introduce something that Apache has as a web server. They have an h3 access file where you can actually define a list of files that you allow a user to access and files that you deny for your user to access. You could, for example, deny access to every file that ends with an .sql file, .sql. And by this you can protect this file by accidentally being downloaded. And as last, yes, the problem that we could run sudo here was that the user running our PHP script has admin permissions. Or in this case, since it is a Linux machine, it had root permissions. Don't do that. Just give each process only those permissions it needs to have. If you want to secure a system and somebody hacks your PHP process, can execute his own PHP scripts, make sure he just has the access he needs to have. Okay, and I think I take it that this was the last that I wanted to talk about. If you have more input, you want another HackMyBox challenge, you have additional security things that we should talk about next time, please ping me. I'm always available on Telegram, Discord, or any other channel you find me on. Stay tuned and happy coding!